Hello, and welcome. Welcome to the Fit Over 40 Challenge Show, the number one health and fitness show for those of us in the club. Yes, that's right, the 40 and Over Club. My name is Coach Dave. I'm going to be your coach and host today, and I'm super excited to bring you this episode. And we're going to have a special guest. His name is Troy Ismir. And before we get started there, I wanted to go ahead and just invite you to my free tribe on Facebook. Yes, I have a Facebook group that's all about health and fitness, and it's just a really great group if you're looking for accountability, looking for people to motivate you. You know, they say that you should hang around those people that you want to become. And so I wanted to offer that to you. You can go to www.allabouthealthandfitness.com. You can join the group for free. Go ahead and introduce yourself and come on in and just help all of us continue to get healthy and fit. And so let's go ahead and get started. Today, as I mentioned, we've got a special guest. His name is Troy Ismir, and he's a faith-based fitness and lifestyle performance coach. He's also an author and a speaker. He's the founder of FO40 Fitness and the Divine Wellness Academy, which is also a podcast. Troy has been in the health, fitness, and nutrition industry for over 25 years. He created his fitness and ministry to help people get stronger in mind, body, and spirit so they can have increased stamina, optimal health, and a fit body. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Troy on the call and let's get started. Hey, Troy, what's going on?
Not too much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hey, thanks a lot for coming on the show, and I'm really looking forward to it. I know some people might have heard the call we did where you were the host, and we had a super great time and everything flowed. So really excited about today and letting you be on the other side, as you said. So thanks a lot, man, for coming on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and it is nice to be on the other side. So I just get to sit back and answer questions.
Yeah, and from the way our show went last time with you is we kind of flowed. So we'll get kind of into it here. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your fitness expertise and all that?
Sure. Well, I've been in the health, fitness, and nutrition industry for about 25 years. So I've been around this for quite a while, and it's just a huge passion of mine. I started out in a small personal training studio in Minnesota, and then moved down to Orlando to help open up the RDV Sportsplex, which is where the Orlando Magic train, and head up the personal training facility there, and a great experience. And now I've actually transitioned to having my own business, and I'm actually a faith-based fitness and lifestyle performance coach. So I take a very holistic approach to helping people make transformational changes by helping them get stronger in mind, body, and spirit so they can have increased stamina, optimal health, and have a fit body. So it's really, to me, I've entered the space of faith and fitness, and that's really my passion.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I know, like I said, when we talked before, it's that whole holistic approach, like you said, you know, and a lot of times that spiritual side is left out, which I feel is a really important piece to overall wellness. And I was just actually in Orlando. I went to the personal training conference actually in Jacksonville, but my family lives in Orlando, and I was at the RDV. So, man, it's just amazing how much that place has grown. Because what was that? That was like when it opened. It was almost 18 years ago or somewhere around there.
Yeah, I was there from 1997 to 2000. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but just what an amazing facility. It's never seen anything like that. And to be a part of that and to kind of be in that where it just was from the ground up. It wasn't even open when I started there. So hired all the personal trainers, figured out where all the equipment goes, and just it's one of the best facilities I've ever been around, and it's beautiful and a great health club.
Yeah, and the other aspect of it is that we have that common friend, which is how we got introduced, which is through Mike Akerson. So just great how that whole thing worked out, how you and I became acquainted. So anyway, I'm a big fan in motivational quotes, and I know that you have on your show kind of the scripture quote.
Mm-hmm.
But give us either scripture quote, motivational quote. What is your favorite one that you like to kind of live by?
Well, I'll give you a couple. I'll give you scripture first of all, and actually the name of my company is FO40 Fitness, and that's after my favorite scripture, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And one of the reasons I named my company after that is so oftentimes we rely on our own power to try to make these changes. Mm-hmm. And starting my business, I know I can't do this on my own, and I have to remember I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And I help people in the same way. When they're trying to make changes from a behavior standpoint, they're trying to get healthy, they're trying to change their nutrition. It can be daunting and overwhelming. And that's where I bring in the spiritual component, which oftentimes is left out of trying to make some changes. So I help people to kind of tap into their spiritual side, and I talk about that scripture quite a bit. So that one really resonates with me. And then another one of my favorite quotes, and I have this actually hanging up in my kitchen, and it's let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. That's from Hippocrates. And I truly believe that food has the power to heal us. But unfortunately, on the flip side, it has the power to do a lot of damage and, in fact, kill us. So one thing that and that's being pretty extreme, but it is true. If you look at the level of type 2 diabetes and obesity and just all those factors that come along with that, is I tell my clients that every time you put something into your mouth, I just want you to be aware that you're either moving towards better health or you're moving towards disease. We're never staying in the middle. Yeah. And that's why I really like that quote, because I do believe food is medicine.
No, that's great. And, last week I did a show where I talked about something that's scarier than ghosts and goblins, that Halloween theme. And one of the things was type 2 diabetes. I'm going to ask you here a question about your why in a second. But for me, this whole thing comes down to my why. And my father had type 2 diabetes. I saw what that was like. And if you see somebody go through that and what happens, again, sometimes I don't want to get to the point where I share, but you got to be honest with people what can happen. Mm-hmm. They don't realize you can get your feet amputated, you can lose your eyesight, your kidneys start to, all that stuff. They just think that, if you get type 2 diabetes, we can treat it. Well, fortunately, he got to the point where it was untreatable because he was just on that other side. But so you're so right. And, I always think about this. And my grandfather used to always eat an apple a day. And I still think apples are good. But with what we've got, you've got to be careful, right? I mean, you got to make sure that you're washing. You got to make sure you're getting them from the right. Because who knows now with the way, and it's just sad that our food is also kind of one of those things where people don't know if they're getting the right food in. So, but it is, I like that quote that you said. So, as I was talking about my why, I think that it's always important to have that, because if you dig deeper into why you want something, that's going to help you. So what is your why for making fitness a priority?
Yeah, well, I can certainly talk about my why fitness is a priority, and I maybe talk to you about my why I started my company. But I mean, I've been all about movement, exercise, training to be an athlete ever since I was just a little kid. I played sports my whole life. That was just something that I loved. I think the first word out of my mouth was ball. At least that's what my mom said. So football, basketball, baseball, nice. You name it. So it was always a part of who I was. And I played football in college. And unfortunately, I had a very serious knee injury, and that ended my career. And I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I'm Troy, the football player, but now that identity is gone. Well, I turned to bodybuilding and became so passionate about exercise, strength training, nutrition, and I just kind of threw myself into that. So as passionate as I was about football, I became as passionate about nutrition, health, and fitness, and actually then made it a career. Went on to get my master's degree in exercise and sports science, and been involved in the industry for so long. So it's easy for me to get up and exercise every day. In fact, I can't wait until the morning comes around so I can go work out again. And I understand not everybody's that way. But what really spurred me on and what my true why is now and why I started my faith and fitness business is I realized I could be in the best physical shape of my life, which I was. I could have six-pack abs, which I did. And I realized I went through a very difficult time about 7 years ago. I went through a very hard divorce after 18 years of marriage and two beautiful children. Something I didn't think would ever happen to me. I went through a divorce, and I realized my physical fitness wasn't going to be enough to get me through that. And that's when I turned to spiritual fitness and I turned to God. And then through all that pain, I started my faith and fitness ministry so I could help people not only be physically fit, but be mentally and spiritually fit. So my why when I wake up every single morning is how can I help people be the best person that they can be through physical health, spiritual health, and mental health.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, some commonalities here. One of the things that you were saying, obviously about the whole sports thing and waking up and it being something that we actually look forward to, and that it realized, I don't know how long into my career that not everybody feels that same way, right? Again, I'm really a big proponent now of trying to get kids active because I think that that's what starts it, and that's what's going to help with part of our epidemic is that, I want to help the people now that want to have the help, but got to start these kids off again because I just think it's going to get worse with the technology and the way that, kids play and all that stuff. But I think the other thing that you were mentioning about, now I just forgot my train of thought, but the whole thing about just having that reason, that purpose, and then finding it and getting back to your why, I think is just so integral to having a success.
Yeah, I actually talked to somebody this morning about that, and they said your why has to be strong enough so you don't negotiate with the non-negotiables.
Yeah.
So basically, you're going to do whatever it takes to accomplish the goal that you set out. But if your why isn't strong enough, you're going to start to negotiate with the non-negotiables. So you're going to start to eat things that aren't in the best interest for your health. And then pretty soon you kind of lost all that momentum. So your why has to be strong enough that you're willing to give up some things. And not that we can't ever eat foods that aren't in the best interest of our health, but you have to give up some things. He mentioned that he loved pizza. He's Italian, and he said, it's not that I don't love pizza. I'm Italian. I love cheese, but I know it's not in the best interest of my health. It's been 4 years since he's had pizza.
Wow.
So his why is very, very strong. Yeah. So if anybody's struggling out there with making changes, start with your why and really take a good hard look at what is your why. And when your why is big enough, you will find a way to make the changes. And of course, getting some professional help through a coach like with Dave or myself is another key. Good support from friends, family is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of already talked a little bit about some of your struggles. Obviously, man, that's got to be pretty devastating when you're an athlete and you're playing collegiate ball and go through. I didn't know that about you, that you got injured, and then about your divorce. Was those some of the worst times you had in terms of you struggling with your health and fitness, or was there another time possibly? And then if so, how do you now go about fitting it in? Since you're a busy, entrepreneur and working with others, what's kind of your way of making sure that's done?
Yeah, well, first of all, as far as my struggles with fitness, I've always been into, like I said, exercise and movement, but there's been a couple from an orthopedic standpoint. I mentioned number one was the football injury, and back in that time, it was 1986. They put you in a cast for 2 months, and I always found a way to, my leg is in a cast. Well, my upper body's fine. I'm going to find a way to lift weights with my upper body. And that's how I got into bodybuilding. And quite honestly, for my mental health, I think that's really what saved me, because I did fall into a deep depression. When you
Yeah.
lose your identity,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, who am I? But through exercise, through strength training, I was able to work through that depression. You know, all of a sudden you're isolated from the football team. That was really, really challenging. But I'll say from a most recent standpoint, it was probably about a little over 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I had major hip surgery. I'm kind of an orthopedic, dream or
You're a
nightmare,
target
however
for
you
those
want to look at
orthopedics.
it. Yeah. I guess orthopedic dream if you're the orthopedic surgeon, and from my perspective, kind of a nightmare. But actually, it was something congenital that I was born with. It's called femoral acetabular impingement. And it, basically, the bottom line is my hip joint wore away. It got to the point where I couldn't tie my shoe. If I was sitting for a period of time, my hip would lock up. I'd be in so much pain, and I lived that way for 3 years. So I finally decided I can't do this anymore. I ended up having a hip resurfacing, which is a metal-on-metal hip implant. It is for people that are very active, but I will tell you, was such a challenge to come back from that. I started out with a walker and then transitioned to a cane. It took me about 4 to 5 weeks to be able to lift if I was sitting down, to be able to lift my leg up about an inch off the floor. And it was so challenging. But I will tell you one thing, that I made a decision and a commitment that I was going to come back from this surgery stronger, fitter, healthier than I was before. And I believe, I'm almost 50, so I'm right underneath that 50, that if you make that commitment, even if you're injured, or you don't feel great, or you're overweight, make that commitment to find something that you can do. So I started to go for 10-minute walks using my walker, and then that turned into using my cane for 20 minutes. And then I started lifting upper body again. And here I am 4 years later, and I will honestly say I'm in much better shape than before my hip surgery.
Wow, that is awesome. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that, because I think there's so much to be learned from that. I think we talked about on your show about the power of the subconscious and the conscious mind. And just right there, it goes to show you that the commitment and your why. You had a strong why that you were not going to let that stop you from being in the best shape that you could be in, and you were committed to it, and you got it done, and that's great, man. I appreciate you sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and one thing I think the other part of the question is, well, how do you find time? How do we find time? And again, from the discussion I had this morning, this is kind of timely. What he talked about is, it's not a time management issue, it's a priority management issue. So we all have 24 hours in a day. We're all busy. We all have a lot going on. But what's your priority? And if you look at your health as one of your top priorities, which it should be, because if you don't have your health, what do you have? Just think, if you have a cold, how do you feel? Not great. But a lot of people are struggling with so many issues with their health. So make it a priority. And I'm a big advocate for exercising first thing in the morning before life gets crazy, busy. You have kids. Carve out 15 to 20 minutes every morning to spend time with yourself, to go for a walk or do yoga, meditate, anything. I'm a big believer in spending quiet time, reading scripture or something inspirational, spiritual. But 5 minutes, 10 minutes, spend some time for yourself. Make it a priority, because you're worth it.
Yeah. And a couple of things I've always found is that my day always seems more energized, more relaxed. I'm not as stressed, because a lot of times what I see is people get up and immediately they're either on Facebook, on their email, and things start snowballing. And then by the end of the day, they've talked themselves out of it, and they're like, you know what, I'll do it tomorrow. And again, I understand that sometimes, there's absolutely no way you can do it in the morning. Even though you could get up earlier and go to bed earlier, but let's just assume that is a non-negotiable for somebody, that they won't get up earlier. You got to do it as soon as you can, because the longer you wait, I just know people, I know myself, I'll talk myself out of it sometimes, but I'm also a fan of modeling. And So tell us a little bit about your routine. You've kind of gone through it a little bit, but maybe
Hmm.
just in a snapshot of how you kind of set your day up. So take us through, what is a day in life like for Troy? And obviously, what you can share about it would be great so we can learn from it.
Sure. And just kind of keep this in perspective. So this is what works for me. And this is something that is kind of materialized over probably the last 7 years. And knowing kind of where I'm at in my life, my kids are both in college, so I have an empty nest. So I have a little more freedom and flexibility to have a little extra quiet time in the morning. But that being said, I am an early morning person. So I usually get up between 4:30 and 5 a.m. And I know that's going to sound early to
That's early.
a lot of people. But to me, the morning is just a time of peacefulness and a time to just have my quiet time with God. So I usually get up, we'll say 5 o'clock, and then I'll read for probably about an hour, a combination of scripture, spiritual teaching. I'm reading Tim Tebow's book right now, which I think, Dave, you're into that
I've
as
got
well.
his book as
Shaking.
well.
Yeah, so I'm reading that. So things that are going to inspire me. I'm a big believer in personal growth and development. So I really spend that hour doing that. And then I'll meditate for anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. I may have 1, 2, or 3 cups of coffee during that time. So I make sure I'm fully caffeinated before I go to the gym.
Yeah, that's okay. You need a little
Because
caffeine, right?
that's shown to break down fat and reduce the risk of cancer, right? As long as you don't have any issues with hypertension.
Yeah.
So I'm in the camp that dark black coffee is good for you. And then I go to the gym anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half. So that's kind of my routine. And, certainly I have clients in there sometimes, and I have meetings to go to. So it doesn't always happen that way. It might be a much shorter version where I have to be out the door by 6 a.m. So in a perfect world, that's what I'm doing. And then I have all that done during my morning time, and the rest of the time I'm focusing on work. I'm focusing on my clients. I'm focusing on personal development. I have a podcast too, the Divine Wellness Academy. So preparing for that. And reading, I read all the time. My TV, I missed Game 7 last night of the Cubs, but you know what? I watch it in a 4-minute snapshot on ESPN. It saved me 4 hours of time.
You probably got all you needed, but man, it was, if you were a Cubs fan or a Cleveland fan for that matter, whatever. I mean, man, it was a nail biter, especially you being on the East Coast. This is kind of a sidetrack, but when I was there for the weekend for that conference, I was watching some NFL, like a Thursday night game, and then I watched some Sunday night football or whatever. And I was like, man, it's almost, after midnight or whatever. By the time these games get over, I'm like, at least being in the Central Time, I can still get to bed by about 10:30, 11 o'clock, because I like to try to get as much sleep as I can. But man, you guys have to stay up late on the East Coast to finish these games. So
it's tough on the East Coast, that's for sure. You either are sleep deprived or you miss out on a lot of these great games. And I just choose to get some sleep. I didn't used to be that way. I used to be, I'll watch every game that's on TV.
Yeah.
It just gets to the point where, it's really, I don't want to say it's not that important, because I love sports. I love football. I love baseball. I'll even watch golf. I will admit that. But I've gotten to a point where in my life, personal development and growth is so much more important, because I do want to have a huge impact in this world. And for me to do that, I have to work so hard on myself to do the things that I want to do. And it's just kind of a daily routine that I kind of set myself up for success. And I will tell you, the one thing that's made the biggest difference in my life, and I started this kind of right after I went through my divorce, it's spending at least 5 minutes in the morning. And for me, I'm a Christian, so it's spending time in the Bible and reading scripture. And if nothing else, if you don't do anything else, that I believe that will transform your life, because 5 minutes turns into 10 turns into 20, and you just want to grow. So if you don't do anything else, if you wake up 5 minutes earlier and you read a scripture or two, in my opinion, as a Christian, that is going to be the most transformative thing that you can do.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's kind of my time too. And like I said earlier, it helps me start the day fresh and with the right mindset. So if I guess you kind of answered that question. If there was one thing somebody was, to get started and looking to make a change, what would that be? I mean, you mentioned that. Well, maybe give us another one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a big believer in habit-based strategies, and I'm a big believer in setting yourself up for success. So let's say somebody is overweight. Maybe they have 50 pounds to lose, 100 pounds to lose. It can be overwhelming. It can be daunting. There's so much misinformation out there. Where do I start? Start with one small habit that you can be successful at. Whatever that is, that habit that's going to make the biggest difference in your life. It may be getting more sleep. It may be eating more fruits and vegetables. It might be starting to walk. Whatever that is, set one habit. Make it simple. Do it for 2 weeks. So like I wanted to be more consistent with my meditation. So I started out, okay, I want to meditate every day for 5 minutes for the next 2 weeks. How confident am I that I could do that? Well, I was 90 to 100% confident that I can do that. Don't set a goal unless you're 90 to 100% confident that you can accomplish it. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure. Yeah. So I started out with 5 minutes a day. I did it every day for 2 weeks. Great. I felt great. Habit established. I moved from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. And then now I'm doing it 20 minutes every morning. So habit-based strategies, make them simple. Set yourself up for success. Start doing it now so you can set yourself up for a very successful 2017.
Yeah, I love that. And funny you say that. I was mentioning that to a group yesterday. I like to start November 1st as my new year because it gets me set and mentally ready to, tackle the holidays because, again, I'm like anybody else. I enjoy all the festivities, the food, all that. But if you set the goal now, set that 20, then you kind of get through the holidays. 2017 is already kind of rolling instead of waiting until January 1st. But that's probably another conversation, another topic. But I really absolutely love the habit-based strategies and setting that one thing. One thing I took away from a couple of speakers, as I mentioned to you, I went to that personal training conference with the NSCA, and the theme, it seemed like they were all talking about all their research, because they do a lot of research and then present on it, was sleep and hydration in terms of having the biggest effect on your overall health. Some of the things that they were studying. So, we would probably both, if you were to look at your clients or ask your client to take a poll or survey, most of them probably don't get more than 5 or 6 hours. And that might be a high number.
Right. And it's become an epidemic. And you're right. Sleep is become a huge issue with the technology that we have. And, we're bombarded with messages, text messages, iPhone, iPad, and we need to start shutting that down a lot earlier. And, just our time of building ourselves back up, that repair is kind of like that 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. window. And if you're not getting good quality sleep during that time, you're not being able to repair your muscles. You're not being able to produce the hormones that we need to, the human growth hormone, the testosterone. And then you're waking up sleep deprived, and it's like you have type 2 diabetes, and it's really it's becoming a problem. And I'm working with a client right now. It's like we just focus on his sleep for basically the first 6 weeks that we work together, and he feels significantly better. And now that he's more rested, it's much easier to make better food choices. Yeah. He's less stressed out. He communicates better with his family, and now he has more energy to exercise. So focusing on sleep has a spillover to, I believe, every area of your life.
Absolutely. And for a while there, I always felt guilty in the sense from an entrepreneur standpoint, because I'd always see these guys, this hustle and grind, you can sleep later, and I finally decided, you know what, just because I'm staying up, working late, that doesn't mean I'm more productive, doesn't mean I'm, and then again, from my health standpoint, so I finally decided, you know what, I know I need this amount of sleep. I try to get 8 hours of sleep. I learned when I started tracking with my Fitbit, I don't always get it. Because I'm restless, or I get woken up by the cat or the dog or the kids. Like last night we had a storm. Fortunately, Florida, I lived there for my whole life, most of it. The storms came afternoon. The thunderstorms. Yeah. Our storms come at 2 a.m. So we get woken up by loud thunder, or if it's the tornado season, tornado sirens. But anyway, so I try to get my 8 hours, but yeah, that's just, it's so important. And you mentioned earlier about your podcast and a little bit about your business. So why don't we just talk a little bit about the Divine Wellness Academy, the show that I was on, and I just think that's great. So kind of let our listeners know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Divine Wellness Academy is something I came up with about 4 years ago, and it's transforming and evolving, and I'm really excited about that. So basically what the Divine Wellness Academy is, it's a 10-week transformational course that focuses on Christ-centered principles. So really focusing on spiritual fitness, mind and prayer fitness. Those are the first 2 weeks that we really focus in on. And then we move into more of the nutrition, the strength training, the high intensity interval training, how to get quality sleep, stress elimination, how to make this a lasting lifestyle change. So it's really helping Christians discover the connection between their physical and spiritual health so they can have increased stamina, they can have more energy, get to the point where they have optimal health, and they have a very fit body and mind. So that's a 10-week course. I'm in the process right now of making that into an online video course that should be ready to go for sure by the beginning of 2017. And then I have my podcast, the Divine Wellness Academy podcast. And really it's about physical and spiritual health. And it's just been something that I love doing because I see not only the physical transformations, and as you know, Dave, when people make changes physically, it impacts every area of their life. And that's why we do what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. And I, really excited about seeing, what's coming out with you in 2017 with that video course. And again, as we've talked before on the phone and then on your show, I mean, I just really feel that that's such a great thing you're doing because we need to incorporate that. I mean, again, we can go on for hours probably talking about what's wrong with a lot of things in this country and in the world. And, the spiritual side, the Christian side, I mean, so I really do think you're doing a great service for everybody and helping people that really need it. And you also kind of have, I guess that's really kind of your business, right? Or do you have you do some in-home or in the local Orlando area, right? Is that kind of your other side?
Yeah, so I'm based out of Orlando, Florida, and I guess if we're talking titles here. I'm a faith-based fitness and lifestyle performance coach. I do some personal training as well, but my main focus is in the faith and fitness. I actually have a one-day seminar coming up in Orlando, January 21st. Better you, better life, and I'm just kind of titling it, "This is your year." And just, I'm going to take my 10-week course and I'm going to condense it down into 8 hours. And really, this is the direction that I want to go. I'm in the faith and fitness space. I love personal training because I do believe that people need to learn how to move properly. I think we've kind of lost that art of movement. So I'm big into movement and teaching people how to move correctly. Actually, I worked with a client the other day, and she couldn't squat, and she couldn't even go down probably a depth of 8 inches, and her toes went out, her knees went in. Well, we discovered her calves were so tight that there's no way that she would ever be able to squat normally until she gets her mobility back in her calf. So doing stuff like that is just, I love that because it changes people's lives. And she would struggle in classes because they squat a lot in classes, and now she at least knows why, and she can work on it. And if we hadn't worked together, she never would have figured that out. So I do love the movement side of things, but for me, what resonates with me is combining the faith with the fitness, because truly that's what matters in our life. In fact, there's a conference coming up in Orlando, November, I believe it's the 16th and 17th. It's a faith and fitness conference, and I'm like, I didn't even know that existed, and now it's going to be in my backyard. So I'm really excited about that.
You'll have to let me know more about that. I'd like to learn more about that. Great. And so where can we learn more about you? I mean, give us some ways to get in contact if we want to learn more about your course, your seminar, or just kind of on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm on social media. You can go to my website. You'll see all my social media. So it would be phil413fitness.com. That's PHIL413fitness.com. And also the divinewellnessacademy.com. So they're kind of interrelated. So you can find me either place. I do have an ebook. If you want to go, you can download that. And it talks about how to make your temple stronger to serve him longer. And that's an ebook that you can get for free. And then those are the best ways. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, all that, Instagram, all that fun social media stuff. But the best thing to do is to go to my website, and you can download my iTunes podcast from there, the Divine Wellness Academy. And I have guests on every week, and we talk a lot about stress elimination, eating the way God intends us to eat. We just interviewed somebody that talked about raw vegan foods and how that's important for our health. And we just talk on a lot of different topics. I just talked to a productivity expert on prioritizing our time. So we hit so many different topics. And as you know, Dave, doing the podcast, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And when you're impacting people's lives, every second of work, every late night, early morning that we put in is worth it when you hear somebody say, you know what, I listened to your podcast and it changed my life. So you're doing great work here with this Fit Over 40 podcast. I'm glad I fit into that.
You're still in the club for a little bit, right? No. But,
what happens when I turn 50, David? You have a different podcast for the...
I guess, I got to wait till I get there, right? No, and that's the hard thing is that... I hope that, really, and I think you would agree with this too, is that really the message is for almost anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even some of the youth that are, adolescents or getting a little bit older. I mean, and my philosophy is whether it's I read something, whether it be Tim Tebow's new book, that I take something out of it, which, by the way, I'm not too far into it, but I mean, I love the first chapter. I mean, you talk about somebody who's just a great example, and you don't think that he struggles, but he clearly had a big struggle when he was cut and told that what he wanted to do for his life, that they didn't want him. But if in the messages you get, I know you kind of mentioned that. I got a message. What did I know? I posted something. They read and they said, "Man, I just love the fact that you're doing this. It keeps me going." And again, I mean, I'm always about if I can just change one person, but then I get these, come out and I'm like, wow, this is just great. So, I'm super excited about the stuff you're doing, learn more about you. And again, hoping to continue to work with you and seeing how we can, it's for his glory. And so how we can, work together and be there and help whoever needs help. I appreciate you coming on, and, again, hopefully I'll have another chance to get back on yours, and we'll just kind of go from there, Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. It's my pleasure. I love talking to like-minded people that are passionate about what they do. That's certainly you. And it is a small world with the technology, and to be able to connect with you in Texas and me in Florida, and to have this conversation and know that we're trying to truly, from our heart, help people that are struggling with their health and live their best life. And we're just coming from a place of compassion and non-judgment. And we all struggle in areas of our lives. Trust me. Yeah. I have plenty of struggles, and I do reach out to people that can help me in my areas of struggles. But if you're struggling with your health and fitness, look to somebody that is an expert in that and is a coach, not just telling you what to do, but truly empowering you to make the changes that will help you live your best life. So, Dave, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Troy, thanks again, and we'll be talking to you soon, man.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.